Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am your temporary host today, Riley Magnuson. I am filling in. Obviously, I'm here most closing bells, but no Jeff Dawson for the afternoon. So you are stuck with me, and I am testing out a few new things because I am doing some solo hosting slash producing. So if anyone is in the comments and is not hearing me or something looks off aside from obviously just me being here, let me know because I am trying to get used to the bells and whistles here on the with the keys to the kingdom here. As I am very appreciative of Jeff for allowing me to come on here by myself to get something out for us here. Obviously, Jeff's been doing a bunch of shows today, so I am captaining the ship here for the afternoon here for the closing bell. Probably going to be fairly short and sweet with mostly only college basketball tonight. Still no NBA. That is getting back up and rolling tomorrow. Maybe I'll go on a random tangent after we get through some college basketball. Not an NHL guy, so probably going to skip over. I think there's 3 NHL games today. My Blackhawks get the I told everyone, watch out for the Blackhawks at home these next few weeks. They got the win in overtime, I think a shootout. Patrick Kane almost hit a buzzer beater in overtime to get the obviously avoid shootout, but Blackhawks get that one done in the shootout there. So we are rocking and rolling. Like I said, mostly short and sweet. I know Jeff and Scotty Webb talked a lot of baseball last night, so I don't have too much to lay down on that. No news really to report on that, and nothing else crazy going on. So, like I said, short and sweet. We are going to dive right into it because there are some good college basketball games tonight around the college basketball world. I guess a little recap of what Jeff and I talked about last night. Told everyone this Villanova line stinks to high heaven for the most part there, and he obviously, I didn't have him on Saturday, but he had him against Providence on Saturday as 3.5-point dogs. Providence takes it to Villanova, and Villanova fails to cover, obviously, that one. And then you get Villanova plus 4.5 at the 16th ranked team in the country, Xavier, a team that I think had one loss at home. Keyword had there, obviously. If you watched the game, you know what happened. Not only did Villanova cover, they get the late win, 64-63, stayed way under the number there. But Miami actually takes care of business against Virginia Tech. K-State actually took care of Baylor. I think I don't remember exactly. I think we were a little torn on that one. A lot of respect coming into that game, obviously, for Baylor. Would have loved to see them a little heftier favorites there. Texas A&M actually gets the win against Tennessee. That was a good one. I was interested, and this is a great case of making sure you get the line at the best time. Mizzou and Mississippi State goes to overtime. Mizzou wins by 2. If you had the later number of Mississippi State plus 3.5, you ended up cashing that one. So moving into today, we've got, as I mentioned, a game here in about 10 minutes. Bellarmine and Jacksonville, an early start to the night in the mid-major world there. I don't have much thoughts on that one. Obviously, would love to have Jeff's opinion for this one. Providence and UConn is really the first kickoff of the night of any key matchups, if anyone's not a mid-major person, obviously. Both teams 20-7 as per the AP rankings. Providence ranked number 20 right now. UConn number 18. Both 20-7. And we're seeing 7.5 for UConn at home here with a 142, 145 or so. Now my phone's jumping all over the place. And last time these two teams met was back in early January. Providence gets the win 73-61 at Providence. Now, obviously, UConn getting a nice hefty number here at home. They are starting to get back into form after, obviously, Jeff's obviously the person to lay down the law on UConn basketball, but had the fantastic start, had a little bit of a lull. Now they've won a handful, 4 of their last 5 at least. They lost to Creighton about a week ago, or a week and a half ago, I should say. Not this past Saturday, the one before that. At Creighton, tough loss there. They bounced back this past Saturday at home against the Hall. Depending on the number you caught, barely failed to cover 11.5 there. Or actually, they win by 9, so I'm not sure what the line was before that. But you're starting to get some respect back to UConn at home here. And the 7.5 number, as far as Providence goes, obviously a team that doesn't often get a ton of respect. You saw it in that game against Villanova. They ended up taking it to Villanova pretty handily. So I'm going to stay away from it, obviously. I do kind of respect where UConn is getting back to, and if I had to go anywhere, maybe I'm leaning that. But obviously, if you've been betting against Providence the last couple of years or you're betting on Providence the last couple of years, you've seen the success they had. They're 7-4 to the number on the road this season. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if this one ends up being a UConn closer win, 5-6 point win, shooting free throws at the end of the game here. But I will lean towards UConn, and maybe they win this one fairly easily going away there. The next one up that I want to talk about at 6 p.m. my time, 7 o'clock East Coast time, Kentucky at Florida. Obviously, Kentucky is starting to play some better basketball, at least the last two bigger wins at Mississippi State as underdogs. Mississippi State, solid team right now. I just talked about it in the recap. We talked about them yesterday. And then the huge win at home, obviously, this past weekend against Tennessee that everyone saw and took note of, obviously, there. Also kind of, in a different vein from that, Tennessee not really playing that well right now. So Kentucky is playing better. But if you follow them all year long, you're either expecting them to turn into the team that everyone expected them to be at the beginning of the season, or you're expecting them to fall back down to earth a little bit here. The problem is Florida 14-13, another disappointing season for the most part here, have not quite lived up to expectations. They've been all over the place. They've been losing a handful of games lately, going back February 4th, starting at Kentucky, 67-72 loss there. Big loss at Alabama, 69-97. Loss at home in a bounce-back spot to Vandy as 8.5-point favorites. That's obviously an ugly one. They get a nice win at home against Ole Miss, 79-64, and then they just lost, pretty handily this past weekend to Arkansas. Jeff and I usually talk about a spot where I would respect Florida if they were favored, but you've got a brand-name team in Kentucky that just had a huge win. I believe this one opened at 3.5. I'm going to double-check what we've got here on a fairly public book. I'm seeing about 75% of bets and money coming in on Kentucky still at the 2.5 number here. Yeah, even close to 80%. So I think this one's a little inflated. I'm interested in Florida in this spot, actually. Florida has been one team that's been a thorn in my side, obviously, these last 2 years in spots like this where, all signs point to them. And then either their defense lays an egg like they just did in different spot, but 84 points allowed against Arkansas this past weekend, or their defense is fantastic and then the offense doesn't crack 60 points. So buyer beware on this Florida team. Obviously, if you haven't seen them by this point, go back and look. It is buyer beware. But I am interested in Florida tonight to get a nice win at home. Not a tournament team by any means. Kentucky, needs to string some wins to make sure they get into the tournament. But it is a little fishy to me, and not seeing Kentucky, especially if they're rolling. I'd respect them a little more towards 4.5, 5 here. So I am very interested in Florida tonight. Moving on down the line, we can skip over this one. These teams are obviously weird, but Vanderbilt at LSU staying in the SEC. Vandy 2.5-point favorites on the road. Vandy's won a bunch of games in a row. LSU's lost a bunch of games in a row. So I'm going to stay away, but might be a time for LSU to get a bounce back under their belt. But again, I have been staying away from both these two teams. If you've been cashing on the Vandy train lately, God bless you. And obviously, if that's why you're into this game, then go for it again. But a little fishy here. I would actually, I'm not interested in LSU, but if I'm going anywhere, I'd lean towards LSU on that one. Syracuse and Clemson, interesting game here in the ACC. 16-11 Syracuse at 19-8 Clemson. This line actually seems pretty fair to me. 4.5, 5 here. 145.5, 146 total. That's kind of right along where these two teams have been. Syracuse playing a little better lately. So I guess I kind of respect the Clemson number a little bit. They have not been playing well. Lost a bunch of games in a row after a fantastic start in the ACC. They are coming off a loss at Louisville, 73-83, as 11.5-point favorites. Whereas Syracuse just lost to Duke, but before that rattled off. It's tough to say rattle off 3 in a row at BC, at Florida State. Nothing crazy there, but a nice win at home against NC State as short favorites there. So I will not be getting into this game, but I honestly kind of lean towards Clemson in this one. But if you disagree with me, I wouldn't stop you on that one. In the Big Ten, this one's not really worth watching, worth your time too much here. But you got Minnesota at Maryland. Excuse me. Minnesota 7-18. Obviously, Maryland 18-9. Maryland coming off the loss over the weekend to Nebraska. They've been a pretty good bounce back team here in Nebraska, especially lately. They've been playing really well. Aside from that Nebraska loss for the most part there, so definitely respect the number, but I've been vocal. I have no feel for these Minnesota games whatsoever. Aside, obviously, there's a few spreads where if it's single digits, then maybe that's a good time to take them. But the 15 is a decent statement for Maryland here, but I do not have any feel for these Minnesota games whatsoever here. So I'll lean towards Maryland, but they did win 81-46. Earlier this month, so as 9.5-point favorites at Minnesota. So I might even put my foot in my mouth and say Minnesota finds a way to keep it closer than the 15. But I am staying far, far away from that. Unless you've been on the fade Minnesota train or you've been back in Maryland lately, I would also stay far away from that one there. Moving on down the line, I don't know if there's any other big games here at the 7 o'clock East Coast window here. So just cruising right on through. Butler DePaul was interesting to me. 7:30 my time, 8:30 East Coast time. Another one that I'm probably going to stay away from, and you could probably stay away from as well, and you probably don't want to watch this one. Wanted to make a note of it because it's just interesting. Despite the losing record, people still have a lot more respect for Butler than they do DePaul. And seeing DePaul 9-18 up against Butler, who's 13-15 as 2.5-point favorites, was a little interesting to me, especially with DePaul. I don't know how many they've lost in a row. I'm only at their last 5, but I know they lost their last 5. Butler's has been playing a little bit better. They took down St. John's and Xavier this month, and then lost their last 2 at Villanova, at Georgetown. So I'm going to go ahead and lean towards DePaul. But again, this one is obviously a stinky game for sure. And it would not surprise me if DePaul laid an egg in this spot. But I'll go on record saying I do like DePaul in the 2.5. Actually, let's check out the money line a little bit here. Minus 138, minus 140. I mean, for a team like that, it's tough to pay that price. But I do lean DePaul and them getting a win there at home. The other Big Ten game of the night, this one's a lot better than the other one that I mentioned. Iowa at Wisconsin. Both these two teams, or actually Iowa should be in the tournament. Wisconsin fighting for their tournament lives for sure right now. I'm seeing a 1.5. Let's see if we've got this one's a little bit all over the place. Iowa minus 1 or minus 1.5 for the most part here. Both these two teams, Iowa coming off of the loss, I know, to Northwestern most recently, actually not a very good showing there, 80-60 loss, and Wisconsin has been back and forth for the most part here. They just lost 57-58 to Rutgers at home this past weekend. Before that, the last 5 at least, home loss to Northwestern, bounce back at Penn State, lost at Nebraska, tough one there, bounce back at home against Michigan, and then a really, scrappy, paint-drying 57-58 loss against Rutgers at home. Afternoon, Mr. PB. Let me know how I'm doing. If you've got any games that you want me to mention, obviously Jeff usually fills in the cracks with what I've got. Please let me know and drop something in. Cruising right through here. Right now we're at the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock slate here for the college basketball, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, probably going to keep this thing fairly short and sweet with no NBA and no anything else. So, but this game here, Iowa and Wisconsin, I was seeing, about 65% of bets and money on both the spread and money line for on Iowa's side of things here. This one's a tough one to judge because you have two clashing styles here, obviously. Going back throughout the matchup, Wisconsin won at Iowa in early December. Tough to judge that at this point, but Iowa obviously in the revenge spot. These two teams obviously don't like each other. But that one was 78-75, which is interesting here for the total. When you see 139.5, you obviously don't think of Wisconsin. And then obviously that kind of lends closer to an Iowa game. But you go back and Wisconsin was able to score last time around 78-75, and even into last year's game. They only played once, but it was an 87-78 win for Wisconsin there. it's a tough team to judge. Both these teams are tough teams to judge. I've had some success with Wisconsin, backing them in certain spots and going against them in certain spots. Iowa is obviously one of the toughest teams to judge in the Big Ten. When you go against them, then they do what they did against Northwestern and shoot 25% from the field, and you go against them and they shoot 50% from the field. So I'm going to go ahead and say Wisconsin sticks to the back and forth nature that they've been on. A lot of people have a lot more respect for Iowa. Even the dogs, but I obviously would love Wisconsin if they were favored here at home. But I think Wisconsin gets this one done. Probably going to stay away from it, though, for all the the Jekyll and Hyde reasons that I mentioned. Wisconsin's offense, if Iowa's controlling the pace in this one, even despite what the two scores that I mentioned previously, Wisconsin's offense can be pretty ugly to watch at different points. Last 3 games, 63 points in a loss, 64 points in a win, and 57 points in a 1-point loss there. So it is tough to judge, but I will go on record saying Wisconsin gets this one done here. Only a handful of games left on the college slate. Wake Forest and NC State. NC State 5.5. Yeah, actually 4.5, 5.5. This one, obviously, you got to do your line shopping if you like either side on this one. Same thing with the total, 155, 156.5. I see anywhere between those numbers is what I'm seeing. And now my phone's all over the place here, but. Both these two teams, I have not had too much action on either of these two teams lately. NC State 21-7 and Wake Forest 17-10 here. They did play back in about a month ago at Wake Forest. NC State as an underdog wins on the road 79-77. NC State coming off the win against UNC this past weekend. Wake Forest coming off the loss at Miami 87-96. They had won their previous 3 before that. A couple of Notre Dame and Georgia Tech sandwiched around UNC there. So this one, I've been staying away from the ACC for the most part, aside from maybe betting against UNC in a couple of different spots here. I kind of respect NC State -5. I think I'm the wrong person to ask at this point with the ACC though. I've kind of lost my way in this conference this year. So. I'll go on record saying I think NC State. PB, Providence +7.5. I was on this one early in the show. Obviously, I'd love to have Jeff here for this one with the Big East and especially UConn there. I don't dislike it. I could go either way on that one. I kind of respect the large number, but at the end of the day, Providence just doesn't get the respect that they deserve. They had only the 3.5-point line. Jeff and I talked about it yesterday. Only the 3.5-point line. Against Villanova the other day, and then they cruised to a 13-point win or whatever it was. So if you're telling me that this is more disrespectful to Providence again, then I can absolutely hear it. I kind of lean towards maybe this being a 6-7 point game or something like that, coming down to UConn icing the game with some free throws. So I'm a little torn on it. I'm actually leaning UConn, but if you go against me, by all means, I could go either way on that game for sure. And again, if you've had action with Providence, you know what their deal is, and you've got a good feel on them. And I've stayed away from them this year. Obviously, the train was huge last year, but they're a positive against the spread this year again, despite getting a lot of lack of respect in a lot of spots. And as dogs, they've obviously been pretty solid. So I would not hate on you at all if you took Providence tonight. Moving on to ACC game later in the day again. UNC at Notre Dame, 6.5-point spread, 148 and a half, I believe, is the total there. 148.5. UNC obviously not playing well. Notre Dame, this team is also not playing very well. Their offense has been really tough to watch. Their totals have been kind of all over the place, usually a little more dependent on who they're playing. UNC obviously lost this past weekend to NC State, lost before that to Miami. On the 11th, they take down a nice win against Clemson, but this team is just struggling right now. I'm going to see what the splits are on this one. A little interested to see there. But for the most part, I'm not interested in either of these teams. You would expect North Carolina to wake up here and in a time where they're desperate for a win, trying to get at least a win in this game. Was interested to see this game as close as it was because of how bad Notre Dame has been. But they did just cover a 12 and a 13 their last two on the road at Duke and at Virginia. So trending upwards defensively a little bit in this one, I guess. So I was surprised to see the 148 just because of a lack of offense for Notre Dame, but their defense has been a little improved there. So but at the same time, this one's a little bit lower for a typical UNC game. So I guess I will lean towards the under in this game, but I'm certainly not playing it. But as far as the UConn Providence game, let me go back to that one for you because I'm drawing a blank on what that total was after moving away from it here. 142.5. I actually, I could definitely get down with the over in that one, Mr. PB there. Especially UConn coming off of the 64-55 home win against Hall. The total was 133. That was kind of a nice indicator of it going under. And you've got, I think last game 73-61 was 134. So I actually do like the over in this one a little bit more than either side in this game. So. I'm actually kind of with you on that one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Sometimes I fly past these totals, but I do like that one a little bit there. You have had some nice big numbers from Providence offensively, but obviously I think people are looking more at UConn. Their totals haven't been quite this high either for Providence, so it is a little bit higher than they've had in the last couple as well. So I do like the over in that one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Let's see. Moving on down here. Only a couple more games left, and then we'll see what else we got here. St. John's and Georgetown. Another kind of wonky one here. Georgetown obviously is the home team, but 2.5 point spread. 16-12 St. John's, 7-21 Georgetown. And Georgetown is only a 2.5 point dog. St. John's only a minus 2.5 point favorite. Whatever you want, however you want to call it there. This one is goofy, and Jeff Dawson getting the bells going. I assume he's talking about this game, unless he's just trying to be a hype man here. Either way, St. John's has won the last 4 times in between these two teams, going back to 2020. Georgetown did get a win at Butler, but obviously Butler not a very good team either. St. John's 16-12, coming off of a loss at home to Creighton, so should be in a bounce back spot. This one is real wonky. I am definitely interested in Georgetown in this one, possibly for the first time. This might be the first time I'm actually not saying the first time I'm interested, but for the first time I might actually take a swing on Georgetown because this one is a little disgusting here. Line hasn't really moved at all. Total all the way up at 156, so this one could be obviously a high scorer, but buyer beware if you're interested in St. John's. That one is a little stinky in my eyes there. So let's see. We can, if anyone's got any other questions, we can jump back into it. And then I'll tie it up here with a few other loose ones. Another one, same time as that, or at least the late window, 8 my time, 9 East Coast time. 9-17 Loyola, +2 against at home, but +2 dogs against 21-6 Fordham. Only a 2-point favorite on the road at 9-17 Loyola. Loyola coming off of the loss to Dayton, where they only scored 49 points as 7-point dogs. Fordham coming off of a loss to VCU, big loss, but should expect them to be a bounce back spot here. They had won their last 3 before that. I have not had much action on the A-10, but this is one that is a little stinky in the same, even stinkier than the same sense as that St. John's Georgetown game. So maybe I go a little action on both those two teams, expecting at least one of them to win, because both of those 2 games are a little stinky there. Don't have many thoughts on it, but the last game of the night, 9:30 my time, 10:30 East Coast time. 5.5, 6-point spread, New Mexico and Boise State. Solid game out west. 20-7 New Mexico, 21-6 Boise State there. Don't have many thoughts on it. New Mexico, a win over the weekend, I think it was, after a little losing streak. Boise State's been winning games. But I'm going to stay away from it. I was more mentioning that it could be a nice game to watch here in the evening hour. And if anyone's got any thoughts, go ahead and lay it down. Aside from that, in college basketball, nothing too crazy here. Just scrolling through to see if anything else catches the eye. Southern Illinois, 6.5-point favorites at home against 13-15 UNI, Northern Iowa. That one's a little goofy there. Southern Illinois has been pretty good this year. They're coming off of a loss against Bradley, 48-50. The total right now down at 129.5. UNI, Northern Iowa, just got a win after a little losing streak. So maybe a couple in a row for you and I there. I don't know. I've been obviously a little out of the MVC a little more than usual this year, but that went a little goofy to me with Southern there at home, so I'll stay away from it, but maybe beware of Southern Illinois in that spot. Aside from that about does it for college basketball. Obviously, I said this one was going to be a little shorter and sweeter. I've got no thoughts. I can't really help anyone out with NHL stuff going on. My Blackhawks, after a win last night, are on the road in Dallas. Winnipeg in the Islanders minus 110 both ways, it looks like there. Islanders home team there. Calgary at Arizona is the last game of the night there. Calgary about minus 225 favorites. So if anyone's got any thoughts, go ahead and lay them down. NBA will be back tomorrow. Decent little slate. Got some lines already out. A couple TNT games for the restart there. Memphis and Philly, and then Golden State and LA. So we'll have the playoff push in the NBA. I told people yesterday, as far as my golf stuff is, I'm taking the week off with 2 big tournaments coming next week. Didn't really see anything that I liked. Obviously had a huge winner a few weeks ago at Pebble with Justin Rose, and then got a little bit back last week, but overall haven't been too successful the last 2 weeks. So taking a little reset and then reassessing for the Arnold Palmer next weekend, and then after that the Players. So 2 huge weeks in the PGA there. So I will be locked and loaded the next 2 weeks for that. Undecided if we've got a Bulls blog for Friday night with the restart there. They are home for the Nets, but obviously bit of a losing streak coming off the All-Star break. Now you got Pat Beverly in the building. Going to be obviously an interesting one there. So we will obviously have you locked and loaded. I'm not sure what the schedule is off the top of my head for shows tomorrow with that Jeff's got planned. If he's got anything or not, I honestly don't know. We will should have something about this same time tomorrow afternoon. Again, whether that's Jeff, whether that's me, whether it's both of us, you'll have to wait and see on that one. But beyond that, might have some Big Ten shows this weekend for the Big Ten college basketball action this weekend. I know there's a few games on Saturday and Sunday, as per usual, some solid ones. Indiana-Purdue rematch on Saturday night. Michigan State-Iowa, both teams obviously trying to get in, make sure they get locked into the tournament. Northwestern Maryland, actually a pretty solid game. Wisconsin-Michigan rematch. That might be a do-or-die loser leaves town matchup there. So going to be a good weekend. Going to be a good week. Rest of the week here shows. Obviously, stay tuned to what Jeff's got going on if he's got any alerts to send out today. But aside from that, thank you for stopping by. Apologies if anyone likes the longer formats. Obviously, a little shorter and sweeter with nobody to bounce ideas back and forth and have any heated conversations that we typically have. So much appreciated. I will. You'll most likely see me tomorrow. Again, not sure if we'll have Jeff or not, but something will be here, and I'm sure you'll see Jeff. If you don't see him tomorrow afternoon, you'll probably see him on some other shows. So thank you very much to anyone who stayed and watched. Obviously, good luck tonight. Stay in your lanes, as Jeff likes to say. Very solid advice. And I'm gonna butcher his spiel on responsible gambling, but obviously gamble responsibly, people. So with that, I will close and stop blabbering, but much appreciative to anyone who stopped by and watched the show with me here today. I will sign off and see everybody tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. See you later.